I'm Marcos Hernandez. I'm a family friend of Andy. He's married to America, who's Peruvian, and my mother is Peruvian. It's been over a decade just being very close, spending Christmases together, special events, holidays. More importantly, with me and Andy, we're in a band together with my uncle. It's a Latin band, and Andy was our singer and our harmonica player. And that's going to be different now. And I'm not sure we'll continue down that same path, but hopefully we'll pick it up again, you know, once we can all handle it. And I just want to say Andy was a beautiful person. He was peace-loving and just an all-around great guy. Comfortable around anyone. Good guy to be around. Taking to parties, he was fun. Yeah, so that's it. I miss you, Andy. What's your name?
My name's David Hernandez.
Okay.
Hi, I'm the little brother of Fred Hernandez, who's one of Andy's good friends. Fred's wife, Bertha, was Andy's boss for a long time over at Wells Fargo. And that's how I got to know him, through my brother, for maybe the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm a musician. I've been playing for a long time. I have a band called Ojada that I play with my nephew and our friend John Carlo and several other guys over in Oakland. And one day I was sitting at my brother's house, and I had met Andy a few times, but I didn't know either that he played or that he sang. And I was sitting there listening to some music, and all of a sudden he started singing to this song in the background over there. And I turned around and went, "Wow, that guy got a pretty good voice." And so as I got to know him over the next year or so, I realized that he played harmonica and that he had been in a band that I had heard of a long time ago called Arme Hammer. And I remember that band because I used to be in that circle over in Oakland. I used to be in a band that was called Grito.
That was our band, Arme Hammer.
Yeah, and then there was Salsa de Berkeley, and there was a lot of other bands, and there's a big circle of musicians, and I'm one of them. And that was a long time ago, so I was like, man, this guy's been around. So when me and my nephew, Marcos Hernandez, and my friend John Carlo, we kind of got together and started jamming. I was playing some drums and congas. They said, well, let's try to do something. And I said, well, if we're going to do something, we got to have somebody to sing and solo and stuff. And the first person I thought of was Andy. And I approached him and he said, yeah, man, let's do it, So luckily, we got to work with him. We did a really nice one performance last year. It was really the only performance we did up in Napa. It was a big street thing, kind of thing where a lot of people came by. It was actually called a porch fest. Everybody played with their band on the porch. And the mayor of Napa came by and said, wow, you guys are one of the best bands that we've heard all day. And a lot of that has to do with Andy because he was doing all the singing. And so when we decided to get this little project together, we've been rehearsing off and on for the last year or so, trying to perfect get our little 2.5 sets down. And we were getting really close. So for us, we're going to really miss him. We're more than likely going to keep on playing. We're going to try to find somebody that's going to, there's nobody's going to be able to fill his shoes, but I'm pretty sure he would want us to continue to play. So we're going to just take a little break and suck it in. And I got all respect. Loved Andy, a really good friend of mine for the short period of time that I knew him. And I just want to let you know, Andy, we're going to keep on doing what we do. And thank you very much for blessing us with your talent and your presence.
Your name is Drew Letchworth.
Yeah, and your name is Timothy Gold.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Now that we've got that straightened out.
We were high school friends of Andy's 42, 43 years ago. And I was recalling that often, sometime late at night or early in the morning, we'd all be hanging out. This is me and Tim White and Pierre LePage and
In the pit, as they called it usually. That's where you would hang out in high school, was a place called the pit, right? So.
yeah, I'm thinking about the late at night stuff.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Up in the hills or out in somebody's house.
Yep.
And it was Red Tune, Scott Tune, and all those people. Anyway, it'd be like 3 in the morning, and
this song would come upon us. It's a deeply spiritual song, and I hope you'll join along with me as we sing this song that really was one of Andy's favorites. So shall we?
it really was our good night song. Yes, we shall. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4.
A mother was washing her baby one night, the youngest of 10, and a delicate bite.
The mother was poor, and the baby was thin. 'Twas no bunting skeleton covered with skin. I looked this up, Tim didn't. The mother turned round for the soap off the rack. 'Twas only a moment, but when she turned back, the baby was gone, and in anguish she cried, "Oh, where has my baby gone?" The angels replied, "Oh, your baby has gone down the plug hole. Your baby has gone down the plug. The poor little thing was so skinny and thin, he should have been washed in a jug, in a jug. Oh, your baby is perfectly happy. He won't need a bath anymore. He's as smug as a bug, and the angels above. Not thin or dirty anymore." You know, I looked at the last words because I never knew what they were, and they still
Mucking about.
Still mucking about with the angels above. He's not gone, but he's not lost, but gone before. Which means, yeah, you'll see him later.
I just always made up the word, so I did it again.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your name?
My name is Nancy Lawson, and I worked with Andy at Wells Fargo Bank in Concord when he was with the credit card division. And I met Andy about 21 years ago. And while he was out, it was during the time, of course, when he was in the band with all the guys. Well, we started our shift at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it wouldn't be long after we started, we'd hear Andy snoring away. And he would snore away until one of us was, Andy, wake up, wake up. And he said, oh my God, thank goodness for waking me up. He says, I just slipped away for a minute. We said, I know, you were out the band last night, right? But we loved working with him. And even after I retired several years ago, we still met for lunch periodically, got together with some other friends from Wells Fargo. And it was always wonderful catching up with him and hearing his stories. And we loved him greatly. So thank you.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Patrick McHugh. I know Andy for 24 years now. I drove over from Auburn, had a long time to consider the wonderful time that I've had with knowing Andy and his family, wonderful daughter Alyssa, who he was very, very proud of and loved very, very much. In the earlier years, I was fortunate that he invited me over to meet his family. I knew his brother Peter as well, and he was, when Andy and himself were roommates, I would often go over there. We had good times together, and Andy was a loving man. I just want to describe that. I would say if there was a person from the moon, or people who lived in the moon, Andy would be coming over come on in, Moon People. You know, he would be just the person who would receive everybody and loved everybody. And he was my first friend who received me in when I moved to California I had been living over in Ireland, and I moved out here, and I was in need of somebody to receive me. And in the credit card division, when I went to, we were working in the same place at Wells Fargo, and he became a friend to me. And he was a wonderful, wonderful friend, a kind, loving person who had no materialistic bents to him at all. He was totally with people. You know, I'll never forget his old Honda. You know, it would just run sometimes. Sometimes it wouldn't run. And then this last car he bought was the first car that wasn't 20 years old, that he didn't have to do a lot of work on.
I hear that.
and you could hear that car going up the hill, and I was going, oh man. But Andy was such a wonderful person, and on a few occasions I would go with him to, I'd be the designated driver to drive him to some of his gigs back in before the day when I know after he met America, it was, you know, that was, you know, he didn't do any drinking that I knew of after that. But anyway, I had stopped myself anyway. But anyway, Andy is just a loving, loving, wonderful man who loved his family dearly and took care of his family in emotionally every which possible way. He was a great brother to Peter. I remember that. He was there for him, and emotionally, physically, you know, every which possible way. So, yes, thank you. And I will finish with this one piece that when I heard Andy had passed away, it was really brought me to a point of meditation. And after I met Andy, I came to receive Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and began to realize that it's about the next life and those parts. But anyway, I prayed to the Lord, and I got a strong sense that God said back, He is here with me. And we would have private sharings, Andy and I, in the, you know, and I do believe he had a personal relationship with Christ, and that was what made him such a humble person and a wonderful person too. Thank you.
Dan, I'm Victor.
I am Andy's brother-in-law.
Okay.
I married Andy's baby sister, and in the beginning, what an adventure that was, because nobody was good enough for Andy's little sister but me. We became good friends. Going through the years, my first real experience with Andy was a family dinner at their house, where I'd never experienced fine dining as a family. But Andy made me feel at home, because after we said our family their prayers, Andy's dinner was done in a matter of seconds. He ate because he had to go to band practice. He was always going. Every time we had dinner, he would eat. I have to go play. Have to go to practice. Always on the move. Always talking about his band. But I never got to experience Andy's playing until I really got serious with his little sister, who kept dragging me to all these nightclubs to see Andy play. And knowing to me, she wasn't even old enough to get into these clubs, but still, just to hear her brother play. Andy and I kind of drifted apart after that. After the marriage, he had his life, I had my life. We were on our own. But the best experience I remember about Andy, we were in a party with his mom and dad, and it was just, to us old people, senior citizens, nobody talking, nobody doing anything. Andy looked over and he goes, I will change the dynamics of this room in 1 minute. I said, go for it, Andy. There was a piano in the corner. Andy walked over, sat down. I didn't know Andy played piano. Andy started playing some blues, started singing. Next thing you know, all the people in this party were up dancing, singing. I'd never experienced a person that could change a room within minutes, and that was Andy. Grown to love the man. He was the biggest part of our family, and for him, when my kids grew up, for them to experience Andy's playing was something. So one day on one of our parties, my daughter had never heard Andy play the harmonica. Oh, I didn't bring a harmonica. First time I've ever seen Andy without a harmonica. My daughter said, Andy, I have one. She went and got her harmonica, and for the next 5 minutes we recorded Andy playing on our back deck, and it just came from his heart. There was a tear rolling down everybody's eyes. So Andy, we're going to miss you. Sorry we didn't get out to the Crab and Hole this year, but buddy, be with us every time we go. We're thinking of you. And every time I hear a harmonica, a tear will come to my eye. Andy, you're a hell of a man, you're a hell of a family, and my family's better off for having you in our life. That's about all I wanted to say. But other than that, may God be with you, Andy.
All right, man. Thank you, Dan.
My name is Dorothy Young, now Dorothy Fest, and I was Andy's girlfriend back in high school. He was my first love, not his first love, Mr. Casanova, as we all know. And met him February 18th, 1971, at a party I had at my house. He came in and kind of saved the day. We went to the Rose Garden, and it was just kind of forever after, you know. I think of high school, I think of Andy, I think of Under Rock, Arme Hammer, and having a great time. And, you know, just he's really a sweet guy, and he gave me this harmonica. I still have it. He wrote me up in one of our classic on again, off again breakups that we will so not go much deeper into. People who were there in the day know what it was all about. He wrote this little poem to me, or verse. It said, "Let the music flow. It laughs, cries, understands, feels, kills pain, no more trouble. Let the music flow. Make the music flow. It will save you, take you away." Found out this morning when I was like going through my things, and funny thing is I just moved last week. I wouldn't have found this had it not been that I moved. So
It's funny how things are serendipitous like that.
Andy was a huge gift in my life. So blessed to have my first love be such a magnificent man who never ever hurt me. Well, he did, but he didn't. You know, it was always with the, like Moses said, he never knew when he was getting into trouble. He never knew. He was just full of love, and he couldn't contain it. He felt love, you had to give it, you had to share it. So, Andy, we love you. Alyssa, Jenna, Lisa, Carrie, Mary, Bob. I don't know you, America, but you were just the most special people in the world to be blessed to have that man in your life for your whole life. So I love you all, and hopefully we won't lose touch. Thank you.
Could you show me, just putting up the harmonica up to the camera?
Okay, I'm going to show the harmonica and his handwriting, because this is into the handwriting. So there's Andy's handwriting of what I just read, and the harmonica he gave me back in high school. I also had a teeny tiny one that I used to wear around my neck, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So
that's great.
But just
this harmonica. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Victor.
it.
Yes.
All right, Jamie. My ears are burning. I want to hear a story about
Well,
Andy.
I have a little special one. I think I've told it a few times, but in 1980, I just had started dating my future husband. It was that awkwardly, in about 8 weeks into it. We went and saw Andy's band at the Rio in Rodeo. We followed him kind of like regularly every weekend. Drove down from Chico, would find Andy and his band. So we'd been together about 8 weeks, had way too much to drink, went outside for some reason, and this proposal occurred. A drunken, "Will you marry me? Oh God, yes." In between, I don't remember, I wish the song was that Midnight Hour we just heard?
Yeah. In the midnight? Yes, it was.
I believed it was between that one, although because that one reached in my heart and just gave me Andy. And so then we go back in, greatest night, we're engaged. So now it's that awkward 8-week period, and we wake up sober, and we had to pretend that we couldn't remember doing it for another year because it was a little soon. But I was Kiri's roommate in college, and I just wanted to be there for her, and I loved her back then and her whole family. They meant the world to me.
My name is Moses Channels, and I knew Andy since, 1976. I first moved to Berkeley as a student. I was about 20 years old, 21 years old, I think, and the way I met him was I was living on Parker Street, and I was writing a song, actually, on my little guitar, and I remember sitting in my bedroom by myself, whacking this song out, trying to get it right, and all of a sudden I hear this boom, 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 boom in my closet. It sounded like it was coming out of my closet, but it was coming out of the fire escape. And I jumped up and I fell out of bed, literally fell out of bed, almost smashed the guitar. And I was so startled, I got up and I went over to the, once I figured out it came from the fire escape, and I opened up the door and there was Andy Tomfohrde saying, hey, he had said just before that, he said, hey, it sounds pretty good in there. And that's when I realized it was coming from the fire escape, and I went over there and I introduced myself. And we became instant best friends. And that started a whole musical odyssey in Berkeley for me. I hadn't planned on doing any music while I was a student up here at Berkeley at the time. I was transferred up here as a junior. And Andy introduced me to everybody. George Cole, Nick Tsoukas, Tim Goldsmith, Peter Morgan, Hector Bonas. He introduced me to everybody, pretty much everybody I know. Victor Owens, I met you, Victor, through this, and through Andy. And we started singing together. We started doing a cappella songs by Sam and Dave. We did a lot of, one favorite of ours was Jesus Gave Me Water. And every time we got in the elevator going up from all night partying or after a gig, he and I would break into the Soul Stirrers version of Jesus Gave Me Water. It was there was a woman from Samaria, came to the well to get some water. And all I had to do was just sing that one little line, and Andy would immediately break into it, and we would go on for hours afterwards, just belting out song after song, anything we can come up with. And we tightened our friendship like that over the years. We always had a lot of music to share with each other. And I loved his voice. It was very different. Oh, he could sing sweetly, though. I remember he wrote a song to Jenna, which I learned to play on the guitar for him. And it was a beautiful, sweet song. But he was also capable of belting out some Wilson Pickett type songs like Mustang Sally, In the Midnight Hour. Which reminds me, when the last I saw Andy was at a rehearsal at David Raytush's house for the Berkeley High School reunion party that was going to happen that weekend. And all of us musicians were sitting around, been in the business for a long time, kind of jaded a little bit. We've seen everything. And I was running through some songs with the band. There was about 6, 7 of us. They were blasting out stuff. And I thought I did pretty good, you know. And I remember Peter saying, yeah, it sounds pretty good, Mo. You still got your voice. And then I looked over at Andy, and he was sitting there quietly, just looking up like a little boy, you know, like a little kid looking up. I said, Andy, it's your turn now. So he gets up and adjusts himself. And we break into Mustang Sally. And as soon as he hit that microphone with his powerful voice, we just went nuts. I mean, I remember distinctly looking over at Peter, looking at the drummer, who I didn't know, looking around the room, and we're all just going, oh, like this, just amazed at the power and the force, the charisma that he had. He just took over that microphone. He was like a monster on that thing. And just a few minutes before, he'd been this calm, cool, collected, almost like a little boy sitting there. Is it my turn next? And he gets up there and he just kills this thing. And it was like that every time he played. I had known him when he was in his 20s. We're about the same age. And he got better with age. His voice was at its peak at 60 years of age. We just celebrated his 60th birthday a few days before he passed. And there was no better singer of that style of music than Andy. There was nobody that could match him. He performed brilliantly with it, and he was just totally out of my league. There was no way I could ever sing like that. And to this day, I won't sing Mustang Sounding because of the way he sang it. It was so good. And now it's gone with him. But the other neat thing about him was his harmonica playing. He could play the harmonica better than anybody else. And I think most musicians that had heard him would agree with me on that. He had studied with Charlie Musselwhite. He took a couple of lessons, he told me, when he was a teenager on harp. And I said, well, Andy, how come you only took a couple of lessons from the guy? And he says, well, because every time I'd go to see Charlie, he was so damn drunk, Moses, that he would almost fall over or pass out before the end of the lesson. And so I didn't go see him after a while, but I got enough from him where I got a lot of good ideas from him before he'd pass out, and then I'd leave. But there was nobody better on singing his type of songs. He was a master, and the same thing with his harp playing, and he only got better. One thing that I'd like to record is that he would, as he got older, he would become more pensive about his harp playing. I remember he'd be going like this, you know, playing, and then he would wait for the turnaround of the song, and then he'd look up like this, you know. I'd never seen him do that before. He'd kind of look up like this, you know, and look up to the heavens or something, and then he'd belt out another line, which is really cool to see. And he was so good at it. What else? We wrote some songs together. One thing that stood out about Andy is that he loved his family. He loved his daughter, Alyssa. He was crazy about his grandson, was always talking about Copernicus. Always, constantly talking about his grandson. He was so proud that he had that child in his life. I know he wanted to see more of his family. He had two families, really. He had his the Peruvian family with America, and he was very much in love with her, very devoted to her. We had a lot of talks about that, and he was very proud about bringing over her two sons that he immigrated from Peru, and they'll be benefiting from that for the rest of their lives because of him. One final thing that I wanted to say about Andy, and that was his generosity. He helped me and a bunch of other people get work as apartment managers. When you got in trouble, he'd back you up. He would ask, hey Mo, how you doing? Everything okay? And if you needed a place to stay, you could always stay at Andy's house. Without even asking, he would offer. And I never met anybody like him, quite like him like that. And I miss him. Okay.
Hi there, my name is George Cole. I'm from Richmond, California. I live in Kensington now. That's where we're filming this. I'd like to say hi to everybody out there. I'd like to especially give a shout out, as they say in the modern vernacular, to Lissy, Alyssa, and also Jenna, who I regard you both very highly, and I miss Andy, and I miss you guys too, even though you guys are still here. I don't get to see you that often. I remember so many things. I'm just going to go off the top of my head here because I think that's kind of the spirit of the whole thing. The first time I saw Andy Tomfohrde was at a party off Moser Lane in El Cerrito. I think he was probably 17, 18 years old, and he was wearing what some people might refer to as coveralls, but I like to think of it as a jumpsuit. It was kind of an ugly puce green jumpsuit with the made into short sleeve, but with the sleeves cut off. And he was on his knees just wailing violently and furiously on his harmonica, shaking his head back and forth as he used to, just completely possessed. And in the minute, and I see Andy Tomfohrde at this party, I had never seen any, and he had long hair and a beard, and he was still in high school. I don't think I was even shaven very well at the time, but there he was, just wailing, just like a man possessed. I said, my God. And he had this distorted harmonica tone. If you know anything about harmonica tone, the bluesmen played through these little tube amplifiers that were kind of underpowered in a sense, and they would break up very easily. And he had this full-blown blues harmonica tone, like the heroes of his that he would emulate. I would find all this out later, but when I heard it, it was just like, are you kidding me? I can't believe this guy sounds like that. And he goes to El Cerrito High, and he's in 11th grade. So that was part A, and then he started to sing, and he sounded like Howlin' Wolf. And here's this ancient blues man's voice coming out of this high school kid. And it was the most shocking thing to see that. I really wasn't prepared for that. So that's how I met. I don't think I even met. That's not how I met Andy. That's how I first saw Andy performing on the harmonica and singing. I don't remember anything else about whose house the party was at. I don't remember who else was in the band. I just remember this very striking visual of him, and it stuck with me and probably will stick with me to the end of my days. Here's a funny story about Andy. After the breakup of the Upstarts, Andy was in another group briefly called the Immigrants, which were also a friend of mine's, brilliant guitar player Peter Morgan, Hector Ibanez, and a fantastic bassist. They had a drummer, Yakov, I believe, and they had the song "Waiting for the Moscow Girls to Arrive." I thought they were cool, but so I think that was a Moses era song. So Moses left the band, and then Andy was a logical choice. So Andy joined the Immigrants, but after that, he was in a hard rock / heavy metal 80s band. I don't even remember the name of it, but I saw them perform up at where do the bands perform up at Cal? Sailor Gate, right there near the gate.
Yeah.
And so they had the PA set up, the microphones, everything, and sure enough, there's Andy wearing a purple leopard spandex tank top. I think he had his pants tucked into his boots, and Andy's a very powerful singer. But it was such a stretch, I don't want to say the word get up again. The outfit was just so shocking to me that it's like, holy cow! It wasn't very flattering, but there he was in the purple leopard print spandex. There was a place up on Broadway. It was called Rock on Broadway. It was where you could get all the rock and roll accoutrement. You could get the studded gloves. Of course, it turns out that a lot of this comes from the guy in Judas Priest, which was a whole another subculture of human. But at the time, all these rock and roll kids were buying all this stuff like it was the coolest thing on the planet. And so that was Andy's foray into hard rock, heavy metal. On a vocal level, he sang it pretty darn good. I think anybody would agree that one of the best hard rock vocalists is the guy Paul Rodgers from the band Free and Bad Company. And Andy was even more bluesy and growly than that. But if the material was good, I could probably still remember some of the hooks from their set to this day. But alas, I don't think I remember any of the hooks. And I don't think I remember the name of the band. I wish somebody would call and tell me the name of that band. It only lasted a second, and the guitar player was, I don't remember his name, but Andy referred to him as the Hard Rock Kid. And was the guy's name Mike Inesco? Was that the guy's name? It's just, yeah, the Hard Rock Kid. And the kid wanted to rock, and he wielded a Les Paul, and that was Andy's new bandmate. But that also didn't work out. Victor, do you have any questions for me since I'm here? I had some notes. I had some talking points here on this old envelope. There's something that I left out. I just wanted to say it was so nice to see Lissy and Jenna. Oh, here's another story. I just remember, even without looking at my notes here. You want to hear another story?
Yeah, sure.
So right after Lissy was born is the story of Andy coming over with Jenna and the baby. So he's, I think it's one of the first rehearsals for the Upstarts over at my parents' house, 3615 Chancellor Avenue in Richmond, across from Harry L's High School. And over comes... and they hadn't really been invited. Jenna, you weren't invited. Lissy, you weren't invited, because nobody even thought about it. But Andy had a family now, and Andy they had to go where Andy was going, and I totally understand that, being a family man myself. And so they came over, and there were my parents, they were completely not expecting this, and so they all just came in, and Jenna, who they did not know, just plopped herself down, and there's little baby Lissy right there, Alyssa, and then they all got to know each other. But it was just like Andy brought his cartel with him, where wherever he went, those were his people now, and so it was real nice to see that. You know, there was Jenna, there was little baby Lissy, and there was everybody. And I remember going over to Andy's house, and he was always fussing about the baby and where's Andy? He's in the bathtub with Lissy. He's bathing her right now. So it was just a very cute scene over there. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And when I take band members now to Ococolay for a gig, of course it's the year 2015 now. When I take them after a gig, we stop at Ococolay for a hot chocolate or an omelet. They're open up late. It's still on University there in Berkeley. And I point out to them that, you know, I used to do this very same thing in the year 1980, which is 35 years ago. And people are in shock because, of course, some of my bandmates are 19, 20 years old. And it's like, wow! And of course, it makes me feel like I've been on this endless tape loop, and there I am repeating myself. Of course, it's different people. But that was across from Andy's apartment building. What street was that building on?
Berkeley Way.
Berkeley Way. I remember going over there, and there's all kinds of fun activity over there, which shall remain nameless and shall never be talked about again. But I had another Andy story, and here's the story of the adobo. Okay, so this is a good story. My mother is Spanish from the Philippines, and my mother always made that nice food for me, the lumpia, the adobo, the oxtail, the pancit, you know. But anyway, so after rehearsal with the upstarts, I really liked Andy, and I'd say, hey, you want to stay for some dinner? And between the two of us, we were just eating my parents out of house and home. You know, just all the food that was left over, the chicken, and he would say, is there any of that adobo left? And then we just go tear it up, you know. And then eventually my mom had to say, you know, I really like Andy, but can you not invite him over for dinner so much because you guys are you're going to eat us out of house and home? And I said, yeah, okay, sure. And so I think that's around the time we started going to Ococolay. Anyway, that's the end of my stories about Andy.
I'm Peter Morgan, and I'm a guitarist. That's the context I know Andy from. And we started playing in bands together when we were both about 18 or 19 years old. So I have various memories about Andy. He was quite a character. I mean, he's one of these personalities that are kind of larger than life. But I want to tell a few stories about him. Well, so the first time I met Andy, we had a band and we were looking for the lead singer, and I think it was David Seabury, who is another local musician, said, "Hey, I know this guy who plays harmonica, you know, and he's really good." So this guy shows up and he looks kind of like, you know, country bumpkin. He has on like these, you know, blue jean overalls, and he's kind of comes in. I think he had like a, you know, hat on, and kind of a little bit schlubby looking, but he sounded great, you know. I mean, primarily, I think everybody was impressed by his harmonica playing. He was really sort of coming from much more of a blues place than otherwise, but he had a great voice, and we worked together for a number of years in different bands. So let me talk about some of the stories I remember about him. So in the 1970s, when, you know, everything was disco, we had a disco show band called Arme Hammer, and we got the name actually from the Arme Hammer box, but we got into some kind of copyright infringement issue. So rather than being Arme Hammer, we were A-R-M-E, Arme and Hammer. But it's still fine. We still kind of use the logo with the Arme and the Hammer and everything. And we would play about 5 or 6 nights a week. We used to play in San Francisco quite a bit at this club called Woodstock, and we were trying to like figure out ways to, you know, enhance the show. And about that time, David Bowie had come out with Fame, and, you know, we used to get a kick out of that kind of stuff because it was sort of, in many ways, contrary to the kind of music we were doing. We were doing like a lot of like R&B and sort of more soul-based stuff. So somebody made the suggestion like, hey, maybe, you know, maybe you could like put a wig on Andy or do something like that when we do Fame. And so Andy actually decided he was going to go through a complete transformation, and he came up with this character called, which is politically incorrect today, but he called himself Fagmar Rodbender. And as it turns out, the name is a takeoff on a realtor who used to be in Rinda, I don't know if he's still alive or not, named Dagmar Fassbender or something to that effect. And Dagmar Fassbender got wind of the fact that Andy had his name called Fagmar Rodbender, and he got pretty upset about it. I guess he talked to Andy's parents about it and told him that he couldn't use the name. Well, Andy really got into this, and you know, at first it started out with like, I think he had like a sort of multicolored afro wig, but then eventually that modified into this big, huge, like blonde afro. He used to strip his shirt off. He had a pair of pants on, and he got these knee-high silver platform shoes, and you know, some kind of crazy-looking sunglasses. And you know, he'd get out there and he'd be like, "Fame takes a man who takes it up over." But he had the microphone and stand hooked up to this Echoplex, which is like an echo machine. And so he's singing this, and then you know, the band's playing. He's kind of going like, making all these crazy sounds. So, you know, it took a lot of balls for him to, you know, rip his shirt off and do this thing, but people just loved it, and that was, you know, that was fun. And you know, the thing about Andy that's great is that you know, he could clown with it, and had a lot of personality that way. So a couple other things about Andy I used to remember. Andy was sort of consistently late. He would. He had the string of like, he'd always have like the crappiest funky car you can possibly imagine and purchase. And, you know, we'd be at these gigs and it's like, you know, we're supposed to start playing at 9 o'clock and it's like, you know, 10 to 9 and people go like, "Where's Andy? Where's Andy?"
I think he had a Volkswagen bus at one time.
Oh, he had a bus at one time too, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably started occasionally. He kind of get there. So, you know, and eventually Andy would make it, but he's, you know, he'd always have these, you know, pretty sincere excuses where, you know, "Oh man, my car broke down, and then, you know, I didn't have any money in my pocket, and I had to talk to somebody, and they came, and, you know, and then it's like, you know, my girlfriend got mad at me, and she left, and, but, you know, somehow, he was kind of like Calamity Joe, but, you know, he would make it to the gig, and he'd bring the house down, and really talented person. So I want to talk about him musically a little bit. So Andy was really a phenomenal harmonica player. I think that he was certainly one of the best harmonica players I think I've ever met or seen. You know, for that matter. I mean, I've seen Paul Butterfield and I've seen Charlie Musselwhite and stuff, but you know, Andy could keep up and really kind of took over the slot left by some of these guys as they dropped off. And I remember Rick Kellogg, who was a really phenomenal harmonica player and singer. He's a local guy, and he passed away at a really young age. I think he was like about 50 or in his 40s when he passed away. But we were playing at this club over in Alameda, and Rick Kellogg came by, because Rick and Andy were friends, and Rick was absolutely blown away.
I didn't know that. Andy's
playing, yeah. He really was just totally impressed by how good Andy was. And the thing about Andy, we used to encourage him. We wanted him to play the chromatic harmonica, which is a little bit more complex harmonica. It's got this button on the side, and you can play chromatic notes and everything. He really couldn't get it together, so he would often play these pretty complex horn parts. And we'd say like, "Okay, Andy, you know, can you play this note?" "Well, let me see, man." And he's like, and he sort of like figure out how to squeeze these notes out of a harmonica that really are on a harmonica.
Didn't he, on occasion, maybe have two harmonicas, or?
Oh,
he might have to switch, I think is what he did.
Yeah, he'd go like this, and then he kind of switched, like he'd be playing a line, and he'd try to get a note you have to get in a different key insert.
I think he had to do that on a tune called, I think I wrote, it's called Evergreen.
Yeah, and it goes up, you know, it modulates up a minor third.
Yeah.
Do do do, and he couldn't get the do because it's a little major thing. So he's like, it's like do 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 do. Then he figured do 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 do. So it was pretty interesting, but he was very strong there. He's a phenomenal blues singer. I mean, you know, he could really channel these old guys. And I think I was listening to it. Somebody made a tape of him when he was 16, I guess, and he's singing this blues song. I'm going like, God, this is like really kind of phenomenal stuff. And what a lot of people don't know, Andy also played the boogie woogie piano. He could play like this, 1930s, 1940s style boogie woogie piano with a walking bass and everything. And he occasionally would sit down and play that. And he took lessons. He wanted to learn how to play the boogie woogie piano. And not too many people can play that style. And that's actually the only style he could play. But he'd sit down there and do it. So I really enjoyed playing with Andy. And most recently for me, I was playing in a band with him and Moses Canales. They were both lead singers in a group we had called the Immigrants from the 70s. We kind of got back together and said, hey, let's play some. And I loved having Andy next to me because Andy would always raise the bar. And I felt really confident because I know Andy was there. But if Andy was there, I knew I had to really whoop and really rip when I was playing because Andy would play something I could like, ooh, I got to keep up with that. So it would inspire me to really, get out there and do it. And so it was fun, and he had a great life, and I certainly miss him, and he's got a great legacy. He's got a wonderful daughter and grandchild, and that's kind of it.
Hi, my name is Joe Paulino, and I went to high school with Andy Tomfohrde. So we're going to go back to around 1972. I was all of 16, and the first money I got, I went out and bought a tape recorder. I had a Sony 650 stereo tape recorder, and my friends Andy and Dave Sonner and Jack Gates and Eric Welch, they were in a band called Under Rock, and they did a lot of Paul Butterfield and Allman Brothers and It's a Beautiful Day and McKinley Morganfield. And I was the only guy with a tape recorder, and I would follow them around to the Arlington Community Church, what we lovingly called the First Unitarian Church of Kensington, which was actually Berkeley, technically, and Albany High, and I knew nothing about setting up microphones. I knew nothing about how to really record something. I recorded everything at 3 3/4 inches per second so I could save tape. But I was there to capture it, and somehow some of these tapes survived, and I have vivid memories, maybe because I wasn't smoking pot. I mean, it was a cloud. It was just a contact high era. It was that time, and I think that the fusion of certain inhalables and the fusion of music and people wanting to have a good time in a much simpler time, it was just, each performance by Under Rock was a celebration. And there are many people who remember that time and say, man, best high school garage band ever. And listening to Andy play back then, listening to him as he got older and we all became adults, his voice only got better, and his ability to reach out and connect with the crowd, it was evident in 1972, and it became golden as his performing ability evolved. I was captivated because Andy, around campus, you'd never really see his face because he would just kind of walk around with this slouch hat and just kind of walking through the campus, kind of making music and, just like an R. Crumb cartoon, really. But with Jack Gates on guitar, who, master 17-year-old blues guy, and Dave Sonner on bass, he had this long hair, and he would just kind of rock back and forth and make these beautiful, sinewy, low-end lines, and Dave Bean on piano, who was kind of like the only classically trained guy in the band. and Eric Welch, who later became a computer wizard on drums, but Andy at the front of the band, getting people whipped into this stomping frenzy of celebratory youth. You know, I fell in love with the music and with these people, and it made me want to play music. I wanted to experience what Andy was experiencing on stage. I wanted to be able to give an audience what he could give an audience. And, you know, I have to say that, you know, I'm trying to play music to this very day to try to get a taste and a touch of what Andy was experiencing back then. I held on to these tapes, and I'd love to just give you a little taste of that signature sound. This is more than a memory for me. This is part of my mythology, you know. I mean, my personal narrative, being a part of this group of people. And with social media, I was very grateful that I was able to get in touch with the guys who were playing this music and make them copies. I became so aware of Andy's music that here in Sausalito, all right, I'm out on my deck and I'm hearing a band coming up from the water. And that's not an unusual thing. In Sausalito, there's a lot of music. But I listen to the vocal, I go, that's Andy. My wife says, who's Andy? I said, that's Andy. That's a guy that I used to follow around with a tape recorder and record back in high school. She goes, you were in touch with everybody from high school. She's from Cleveland. She doesn't relate to that. So we drove down, trying to find the boat where the music was coming from. And we walked up uninvited to this party, and there's Andy. And as I said before, he sounded just as good, better than he did in high school. And he was just as welcoming. It was like not a day had passed. So we spend the rest of our time thinking of the notes he left unplayed, and you know, his joyous interpretation of the blues. I knew him as a blues guy. Other people knew him as a rock guy, or as a funk guy, or as a disco guy with the, you know, late 70s platform shoes. But I knew him as a grizzled, you know, black man stuck in the body of a high school teenager. My man, Andy. That's all I got.
All right, man. Thank you. My name is Victor Owens, and some of you might recall me from the Arme Hammer band. Anyway, Andy, yeah. He was an important addition to this group that we had put together. I started out with Will Nance and me. We had met through the Classified Flea Market in Alameda. Did a couple jam sessions, and we decided that we liked playing with each other, and then somehow I got a hold of Randy and said, hey, I got this bass player. So here we were, three of us. And then we added Peter Morgan. And then, you know, I think we said we got to have a singer. And I can't remember if it was Fred Horn and, you know, who came in next, but probably around 1973, late 73, as we started putting this together, Andy showed up. Again, I don't know if he heard through the grapevine or if maybe Randy brought him in. He auditioned. We loved him. He fit most perfectly. We knew it was going to work out, and it did. It worked out to the end, until I kind of busted the band up. So, yeah, Andy was a great spirit to the band, very positive. You know, everybody had their ups and downs, and we supported each other all that we could. And Andy was right there. He helped out a lot. Good spirits, you know, always tried to be diplomatic for us to work things out. And wow, we you know, there are a lot of stories that I could talk about. Yeah, musician stories on the road, what have you. Gosh, we had one. We were up in Canada, and wow, we were so nervy in the nightclubs up there. We had something called the Deep Banana Contest, and you know, Andy executed this stuff with precision. He didn't hold anything back. He'd say, you know, at the end of the night, you're gonna get a bottle of champagne. Who could ever swallow a banana the deepest? Yeah, you take a banana, peel it back, bite it, and then we'd measure it with a tape measure, and you know, they get the grand prize of the evening. Anyway, so that was one, and Andy just, you know, we're trying not to laugh, but he knocked it out. He was serious contest here, you know, and it was great. Another one that was really an interesting thing that we did was Andy. We developed this character, and I think he went with the name Fagmar Rodbender, something like that. And he would put on a pink afro fright wig, some weird tight spandex outfit, pink, no, I'm sorry, silver platform boots, big platforms, big sunglasses, you know, Elton John and Bootsy Collins, they were all big then. So he'd get out there and we would do this song, Fame, by David Bowie. It was great. He would take the microphone stand and put it between his legs and extend the stand out back and forth on, you know, in time with the music. Everybody loved it. And the best performance we did doing that particular character was we opened up for Rufus before they just made it to Rufus and Chaka Khan and before she left the band. It was still Rufus. What a great gig that was. We played to a packed audience at the Oakland Auditorium. Can't tell you what year it was, but it was grand. I recall that I was kind of a slave driver at that point. I said, we're going to be rehearsing every night to get this show down perfectly. Again, precision. Everything was a perfect delivery to the audience, and they really loved us. It was a great show. And we had just rekindled our relationship as friends only a few years ago. And there's some unfinished projects that we were getting to work on, and we'll finish them up without him. But, you know, in spirit, he's in our hearts, man. And going to the memorial the other day was really, it was pretty touching. So, signing off, Andy. We all love you, man.